Hello, I'm Maria Hall-Brown, and this is LA Currents. Through the stay-at-home orders, Angelenos had remarkably clean air. An anomaly, perhaps, but if our next guest has any say in the matter, it will become a reality. I'm delighted to welcome to LA Currents Matthew Petersen, the CEO and president of the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator, otherwise known as LACI.
Yeah. It's good to go somewhere besides your house during COVID.
It is, isn't it? And it's a nice place to be. And we're delighted to have you here. So welcome out.
Thank you for having me.
But literally back to the stay-at-home orders. I mean, we saw such clean air. Now there were a number of factors involved. Obviously, there was the lack of traffic because people not going out. There was rain and there was wind. But LACI has an initiative, Zero Emissions 2028, that will actually hopefully replicate that beautiful crystal clear air. So how is it going, and did we learn anything from the early part of the pandemic that you're utilizing?
I think so. LA is historically known for some of the worst air in the nation, and we still have the worst air in the nation in terms of NOx, which is a smog-forming pollutant, and it's the thing that causes triggers asthma attacks in the young and the old, and anybody with upper respiratory problems for that matter. And we know that air pollution helps when we breathe dirty air. It makes us more susceptible to viruses, including COVID-19, according to a recent Harvard study. And so there are clear medical benefits, health benefits, economic benefits, the cost of the economy of bad air, and of course the loss of human life. So when we were experiencing cleaner air, quieter streets, safer streets during the pandemic, as everybody took to walking, like I did. I never used to walk as much as I do now. People discovered the benefits of fewer cars on the road, better air quality, and quieter neighborhoods. I mean, the diesel and natural gas trucks and buses that traverse our streets are pretty loud. They rattle storefronts and our homes. So we are really focused at LACI with our transportation electrification partnership, which includes Mayor Garcetti, the County of Los Angeles, through Supervisor Hahn's leadership, LA Metro and Phil Washington's leadership, along with the private sector, to see how we can accelerate the move to zero emissions transportation by the time the world arrives in Los Angeles for the Olympic and Paralympic Games in 2028. Setting targets is the easy part. The hard work is actually making it happen. And that's why we've created this unprecedented regional collaboration. LA, as we were talking before the interview, it's a dispersed place that, political geographical landmarks are hard in terms of, where the city boundaries are versus the county or Santa Monica or Orange County. And people don't always understand where they are. We just consider this sort of, LA in its greater form. So we're really working hard to see how we can make progress by working with the private sector, working with the public sector, and getting the innovations that also help our lowest income communities, where scooters are not dropped off on the corners in the morning, and there isn't an EV, electric vehicle, let alone a car in the driveway at all. So how do we help everybody improve their lives, create economic opportunity, and clean the air, which has so many benefits?
Okay, so you're bringing up some specifics that LACI does, but let's talk about LACI in general, because I really think it's a unique program. I'm not sure people really have a comprehensive understanding of the different elements that LACI integrates itself into, or what it's hoping to achieve. So obviously there's this zero emissions by 2028 when the Olympics arrive in Los Angeles, given everything progresses appropriately to then. So how are you going about doing that, and then what are some of the other programs that LACI participates in?
Like many organizations, we're a nonprofit, so we're a 501c3 organization. What's unique about our organization, number one, is that we were created as an economic development initiative of the city.
Okay.
So the city of Los Angeles, under then Mayor Villaraigosa, and since under Mayor Garcetti, along with the Department of Water and Power, stood up the organization to help drive economic opportunity through the green economy in Los Angeles. So our mission is to create an inclusive green economy. In normal days, we occupy the La Kretz Innovation Center. We are the stewards of it on behalf of the Department of Water and Power and the city, where we host meetings and gatherings of experts and entrepreneurs. And we also create the space for entrepreneurs to to build the teams that they need to bring forth the solutions to the green economy that we need to tackle the climate crisis, to improve air quality, to reduce water use, to create a sustainable future. So that's number one that's unique about our organization. The other is, in addition to the work we just talked about in terms of zero emissions mobility, which includes the goods movement at the ports of Los Angeles, as well as passenger mobility and getting people out of their cars into public transit or walking and biking. We're focused on two other areas, what we call unlocking innovation. How do we help entrepreneurs create the next killer app, so to speak, to help us solve the climate crisis? And it could be anything from making it easier for you or I to buy solar if we own a home, or buying compostable cups like Repurpose, one of our startups manufacturers, or one of our newer startups called Amply, making it easier for public fleets to charge their vehicles. There are so many great solutions that entrepreneurs are bringing forth. So how do we help them grow those businesses? Now, these companies aren't high growth, unicorns as we read about, like a Facebook or others that are going IPO, like an Airbnb. But they are solutions that hire people and put people to work right here in Los Angeles, that are creating economic growth, that are creating economic opportunity, and creating environmental benefit. One of the things we do in that work is also try to recruit diverse entrepreneurs, underrepresented founders of companies, women and people of color, black founders, brown founders. They have a tougher, those communities have a tougher time getting access to capital. Mm-hmm. That's just institutional barriers, bias, and so we're there to help them succeed in bringing their idea forth and get it funded and invested in. So that's another really important thing that we work really hard on to try to represent in our startup community. The other piece is helping people be prepared for those jobs. So we do a lot of work with workforce development, and we're in our third cohort of workforce training. They get trained, our participants get trained on how to maintain and fix EV charging stations. So again, tied to the green economy. They're also learning things like CAD software, and as well as electrical safety training, so that they have opportunities beyond just that segment of the workforce. And we're pairing them with our startups and our corporate partners that come in to work with LACI, as well as our government partners like LA, Department of Water and Power.
It seems like electricity is at the cornerstone of so many of these green initiatives because of the fact that it's a clean source of energy. Right. Have you noticed that has become easier to attain, easier to manipulate? Yeah,
I think as we're moving in California to 100% clean energy, including here in the city of Los Angeles with the Department of Water and Power, also under Mayor Garcetti's leadership, moving in that direction, there's really a focus on the opportunity in reducing air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. And we're seeing extreme heat right now, and with extreme heat comes extreme drought, and with extreme heat and extreme drought, we get fires. And then of course with extreme weather, we get things like freak lightning storms that ignite the fires going on right now in California. So what do we do to take responsibility for reducing those emissions while making our communities more livable? So the solution that electricity provides as we move to more and more renewable energy from solar or wind and geothermal is a clean source of fuel, not just to power our buildings and put the lights on, which get increasingly efficient from LEDs and other technologies. It's also the fuel that can go into our vehicles. And we're seeing now there are more and more electric vehicles on the road. The car company with the greatest valuation in the world is Tesla. And they make many fewer cars than Toyota or GM. That is really the future. Now we're seeing more and more electric vehicle startups in the LA region. Canoe is one down in Torrance, another is Fisker Automotive. There are many more in the LA area that are beginning to move to the IPO market, to the stock market to raise capital, and they're creating jobs here. They're creating innovation, and those vehicles are all powered by electricity. And electricity is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. There are places where we need to add in solar plus battery storage to be able to help make the grid more resilient and provide backup power in a time of emergency. So those are the kinds of solutions that we're working on with our startups, with our corporate and government partners, as well as with our workforce training.
Emergency is sort of the key word of our lives these days. So I imagine, however, that even though we got to see clean air, the pandemic has not necessarily been a favorable thing to LACI. How has it affected what you are capable and able to do right now?
The greatest threat facing humanity is the existential threat of climate change, and bar none. I mean, the pandemic is bad, but if we, think about the fires and the last several years and around the world where vulnerable, lower income populations, whether it's in Bangladesh or other places, are vulnerable. So it is the greatest threat facing us in the long term and even right now, but pandemic has affected our lives and disrupted our lives in a way that we couldn't even have imagined. I mean, just if we appeared randomly and just walked around the streets and saw people in masks, you'd think you would be in an alternate reality. Mm-hmm. If you were brought from the past into the future. So we, of course, have had to adjust like every organization or every company or every government agency. We've gone to fully remote working, and our teams we're working harder than ever to support the startups, to do the pilot projects we're doing with communities where we're doing EV car sharing in places like Pacoima and San Pedro at housing authority projects where the residents don't have a car necessarily, and they may have to get a loved one to the doctor. So they're able to access these services to take their loved one for a medical appointment or whatever it might be. So the urgency of that has become even more so. Similarly, our work with small businesses. So we were asked by the Mayor Garcetti's team to see how we could take our expertise in helping startups to work with small businesses in the city of LA. So what we call our Founders Business Accelerator is working with these small businesses to increase their economic impact, their environmental impact, and their community impact. And a great example of one of our participants is a South LA cafe. They just appeared on the front page of the Washington Post or on the front page of LA Times. They have completely pivoted, and that's been what we've been focused on, is help them pivot and survive and thrive, hopefully, through this pandemic. South LA Cafe went to the community and said, hey, give us money on a subscription model, and we'll use those dollars to provide free groceries to those in need. So there's a lot of great free food service offerings, from the county and the school district, making sure people have breakfast or lunch or groceries. But this has been really just a community-led, community-born effort, and our team has helped them make that pivot and really be able to thrive. And so those are the kinds of ways that we've pivoted. And one other thing I'll throw out that we have been able to use the facility for. We have $15 million worth of equipment and software in the building in the Arts District at the La Kretz Innovation Center. And we're putting that equipment to work to make face shields that we're donating to frontline medical workers. So we've made 10,000 so far, and with generous support of organizations like the Metabolic Studio of Annenberg Foundation and the estate of Octavia Butler, we're going to be making more and working with the Water and Power Credit Union, which is affiliated with the LA Department of Water and Power, to reach out to their members to help us raise the money to do more. So there's a lot of things we've been doing, thankfully, to not just stay busy, but actually make a meaningful difference in people's lives here in Los Angeles.
Nothing like an innovation center to be innovative.
That's right.
Exactly. But along those lines, those that you actually do help, the startups and the incubators that you try to support, what is it that you look for? What do you see in an entrepreneur that makes you as the leader of an organization that is looking for people who can sustain, not only create? Yep. What is it that strikes you? What are the components of what you believe would be successful?
Well,
or do you just take a chance because you just think that they have some cool idea that you're willing to at least try?
It's a little bit of all of that. I mean, it's, let's say you came into LACI and said, I want to make the best ceramic mug from recycled paper, whatever the idea is.
It's my idea. You
Yes.
heard it here.
Come on and pitch us. We would take a look at, what's your background and have you had any experience in that field, or what's what we call the addressable market? Is there a market to sell into? Is there a gap in the market? Is there a problem to be solved that your idea would help address? And most entrepreneurs that come in, 9 times out of 10, their idea is kind of what we call pivot. It may evolve, go from being a coffee mug to
a whole set of dishes.
Yeah, exactly. Could be, become forks and knives. And that's our job, to help the entrepreneurs once they're in the incubator to do that. But to get to the place where we make an invitation for them to join us, we really go through an exhaustive interview process, because we want to understand the people. The people are as much of the success formula, of course, even more so than the idea they have. And when we work with startups in our core incubation program, where we take the funding the city provides us with, the council and the mayor providing us what we call community development block grant funding for economic initiatives, which goes into paying for the staff and the executives and residents that support the startups and the small businesses. We want to make sure that we're picking the best, companies to work with. And what we do is we provide them this sweat equity, and we say, well, give us a portion of your company. It's a modest amount, 1% to 3%. And we're going to value your company and your offering based on diversity of your founders. Of course, the quality of the idea and the team has got to be forefront, but we want to walk our talk in terms of, we know companies with diverse founders, whether it's women or people of color, have greater success rates overall, but they have a tougher time access to capital, as we talked about earlier. So we provide them a more competitive offer if they come in with the things that we want to help companies make part of their culture, part of their DNA over the time they're with us. And so once they're in the incubator, they can earn that back too by making commitments to community givebacks, giving donations to the community, increasing their environmental impact, of course. So those are the things that we do and we look for. So we're thinking about a number of factors, not just the quality of the people and their ideas, but really their values as well. And do they align? Because we're taking the public trust of these dollars, not just to create jobs, but to create meaningful jobs that make a difference in the community and growing those businesses right here in LA and in the region.
Is there a window of time in which they participate with you, and then from that point, an investment angel, or depending upon your point of view, an investment shark will come and help their business actually live beyond their relationship with LACI?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's what we call the stage. I mean, there's a genesis stage, or where the idea is on a napkin. That's a little too early for us. Mm-hmm. We might get some of those startups and sort of we just provide them some ideas and networking and introductions, just very light touch. But to be part of our core incubation program that we're talking about, they need to have some working prototype, something that shows whether it's software-based or physical, hard
proof
tech.
of life.
Yeah, exactly. And then we go from there. But to get to the investment, of course, we provide them investor introductions. We have our own investment fund that once they're in the incubation program, they're eligible for and they can apply for when they're out for what we call a raise, actually going to the market, whether it's from angel investors or for earlier stage companies or later stage, what they would call a Series A round. We work with them to, of course, get their pitch ready, give them feedback, give them the constructive criticism they need, but also the introductions, and then if they're successful in getting a lead investor, they can apply to our fund. Wow. So those are the kinds of things that we do to help the startups.
Now, needless to say, this is to benefit Los Angeles as a city, et cetera. And Los Angeles is very innovative in and of itself. I mean, the West is, incredibly creative from, top to bottom. But where do you look to see, other places that might be moving in a direction that you can steal little ideas or get inspired by their ideas? So where are you looking? Because I know that you have a very broad perspective, even before you came to LACI, of definitely sensitivity to the planet and how it should be handled for a long period of time. So where do you look? What are some good examples that you try to bring in?
Well, we look all sorts of places. I mean, LA is probably one of the most innovative regions. I mean, Mayor Garcetti and the City Council, led by Nuri Martinez, and the support of Housing Chair Gil Cedillo, who approves all their community development block grant funding that we get, and other members of the council like Paul Koretz or Paul Krikorian, or the list goes on. We get ideas from them sometimes, and that's some of the exciting. The mayor's office or council offices will send us, hey, we got asked about this technology. Remember that mug made from paper? We got asked if it's something the city should buy, and would you take a look at it? So we get a little bit of that. So we get some homegrown, lead generation, if you will, to look at. But we also go and scout ideas nationally. So when we want to learn from innovations, we'll look, whether it's the Bay Area, New York, sometimes further afield, in places like Paris, where the mayor is really doing a lot to make the interior core of Paris healthier, same in London, both places where they have severe air quality problems. Or the circular economy, how do we recycle that ceramic mug made from paper, and the chemistry that's involved? How can you do something with it afterwards so that we just don't end up with more trash in the landfill that, there is no more way. We don't have any more places to throw our stuff forever. Really looking at all those factors to find innovation. And sometimes it's introduction. Sometimes the people, they self-select and apply for our programs. But you've always got to be scouting and looking for ideas and entrepreneurs to keep the innovation coming.
It seems insurmountable for a number of reasons, just because we're a little late to the game in making some dramatic changes. There's obviously other things that seem to take priority in regards to what we have to manage and take care of. But you consistently and persistently believe that we have the ability and the power. And the reason I say that is because you are now the author of one of my favorite quotes. And why we should remain optimistic, because anything can be done with hope, love, and opposable thumbs.
That's right. Well, it's what sets us apart, I suppose, as a species. I think that was from I probably said that to the USC Trojan alumni magazine. I think it's true. I mean, I think because you could, if once you dive into the science of the climate crisis or ecosystem collapse of the oceans and the coral reefs, it's
pretty intimidating.
Pretty depressing and intimidating. And, I talked to my son. He's 17. His mom and I are divorced, but we share a lot of interconnections still as parents of our child. And she's a documentary filmmaker, and I've been doing this work for a long time. He's been surrounded by these issues, and, it's pretty daunting to think about the future, and then you see the reality of these fires in California. And we just were camping a few weeks ago, well, actually, 2 weeks ago, in Butana State Park, which has now been ravaged by fire. 3 days after we left, the lightning strikes hit. And so it's a place we go every year. We've been going for 12 years for a father-son camping trip. So he and I had some pretty deep conversations, both around the fire while we were there, around our campfire, and since. And but you have to have hope. That's what sets us apart. Hope and love and the imposable thumb really are what set us apart as a species, and why we've both figured out these technological advances that have improved our lives and created economic growth. Yet we can use those same qualities to create a future where generations to come can we can ensure they enjoy at least some of the something close to the beauty and the gifts that nature provides us right now. And that's really important, because we can't just continue to economic growth without the connection to sustainability is just a zero-sum game. Yet if we work together on both, we can grow the economy, we can create jobs, we can make create a more sustainable planet for generations to come. And that's really critical to our future, and it's an exciting opportunity.
Well, and having said that, you've said this, there are economic concerns and factors in making these changes, and then there are also political agendas that somehow at times conflict. Are you watching that happen now with economic concerns and with a political climate as we move into an election, a pretty impressive election? Are you feeling confident that there's enough of a foundation for what LACI does and what's happening to be okay?
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any going back. California has grown its economy to record growth with the most aggressive environmental policies in the nation, if not the world. We know we can grow our economy and become the leader in climate change and addressing the climate crisis. We know we can grow the economy and create jobs while creating the greenest, healthiest buildings there are. We know we can grow the economy by using less water. When I was the mayor's chief sustainability officer, we responded to the drought. And people laughed at us when we told them the goals we set. We beat those goals. People can respond and will respond when you ask them to take steps. And we make it easier. So whether it's a Tesla that's fun and exciting to drive, that is getting more affordable, and we're seeing more products on the market, We know we can make that transformation. And when we saw what happened during COVID, hey, it's great to walk. What would make walking nicer? More beautiful, safer streets. We're beginning those investments, and I think those investments are going to double down. Walking and biking, of course, but also those connections to transit. Transit ridership is way down. How do we make transit safer in a COVID world? That's a critical question facing our partners like the Metropolitan Transit Authority. But we know we can do it, and I'm extremely hopeful. I think in this political climate we're in, California isn't walking away at all. They're doubling down. LA is doing the same. There's a green economic recovery, and that's why our organization with all of our transportation partners put forth a stimulus proposal of $150 billion, sized to the idea of a $2 trillion stimulus, which President Trump and congressional leaders have talked about, but haven't happened yet, that would create jobs across this country. Of course, right here in LA, it would clean up the air to get those dirty diesel trucks replaced by zero-emission trucks that come from the ports, and those residents that live along the I-710 corridor and other freeways suffer from the dirtiest air in the region and the nation. We know there's economic opportunity to do that, and we know that, of course, one of the candidates running for president has got a little more aggressive policies and bold proposals for moving in this direction than the other. But we see this direction because not just California's leadership, I think it's 20 states or nearly 20 states have joined with 15 states have joined with California on our clean car rules. And 5 major automakers have joined.
I was going to
with
say, the
California.
automakers, despite whatever.
They're headed this way no matter what.
Right.
The folks in the White House can try to roll back rules and requirements, but the industry is headed this direction towards electric vehicles, as are heavy-duty truck manufacturers. So it's a foregone conclusion. People can try to slow it down, but it's going to happen.
So if somebody wants information about LACI or wants to get involved with LACI, should there be, is there a pause in terms of just sort of waiting for things to open up more?
We've been recruiting for our Founders Business Accelerator right now, which and we'll be, we're in the middle of our latest workforce training program, which is both virtually and in person with social distance measures outside, of course, when we're doing our trainings in the field. We'll be doing the same with our Founders Business Accelerator, which is the small business program. We would invite any small business in the city of LA to go to laci.org and apply for that. It's laci.org. And then we'll be going out for applications for our core incubation program soon too. So there's a number of ways people can get engaged now. They don't have to wait for the COVID crisis to pass for free immunization to happen, or antibodies to take hold. We can't hold our breath forever. We need to continue the work, and we have been and will, and we're excited about people joining us on that journey.
I've had the opportunity on several days, this is anecdotal by the way, but to chat with some young Angelenos, and how they're feeling about what's happening. And one of them said something that I thought was really profound, that this is the most entrepreneurial generation that is coming out. Are you noticing that? Are you feeling that too, that there is an entire new verve from millennials and younger, that they are entrepreneurial, that they want to take it into their own hands?
Absolutely. And I say, I think it's, the traditional for-profit entrepreneurial spirit, but also the social entrepreneurial spirit of really taking responsibility for changing our communities and taking the future by the horns, if you will, and shaping that future. History is not preordained. We can guide it and direct it. And that was what I saw when I marched with my son during the Black Lives Matter protests with 50,000 people out in the streets of Hollywood. There were no cops on the street. There was no clear leaders. It was self-organized, led by youth, inspired by youth, guided by youth. And it was beautiful. It was amazing. And then we know we need to deal with racial injustice and climate justice together. Without dealing with both, we're just going to create deeper rooted problems for future generations to address. So this generation is standing up and taking responsibility and challenging leaders to do the same. And I'm inspired by that, and it gives me great hope.
Well, hope, love, and Opposable thumbs. That's the best. Well, it was really great to talk to you. Thank you
Great
so
to
much,
talk with
Matt.
you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for
Best of
having me.
everything.